All right, so I think what I want to talk about first, let's talk about Beyond Good and Evil 1. I played this a few years ago for the first time. Played through it for the first time a few years ago and loved it. And I've had an urge to go back to it. I've just been wanting to play it again. I love the world. I just thought it was so charming, such a good story, and so many little fun side activities to go and do in that world. I had a real urge to play through it again. And I gotta say, man, this is like equally heartbreaking and amazing when you look at how well this game holds up and how incredible these characters are and just how goddamn fun and different this title was. And when you're talking about this came out in a generation full of fun and different, unique, innovative new ideas in the game space, but Beyond Good and Evil still really stands out as something that's I think more special than most titles for its time. Like I really do think that this is one of the best PlayStation 2, original Xbox 6th generation games. It's a fucking great time. But while it is all of those things, it's very heartbreaking that this thing is just dormant. That this thing is just languishing off in developmental hell at Ubisoft, especially when you look at the slate of Ubisoft, their releases as of late. They unique and bold and different and innovative. Those are terms you really don't hear thrown around often at all when discussing Ubisoft's latest games. They've made some good shit. A few good titles. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was great. Valhalla sold incredibly well. It didn't quite click with me. I found Far Cry 6 to be, more of the same, but fairly enjoyable. And, you have like your Riders Republics, which is a little bit, it's unique, but this is so special. And that they are just sitting on this IP and doing nothing with it. It really boggles the brain, man, because what they introduce here with Beyond Good and Evil is essentially like Metal Gear Solid meets Tomb Raider meets Pixar, where you have this whimsical, cartoony-esque aesthetic, but it's accompanied by a deceptively deep and dark storyline with like government corruption and human trafficking going on at times, and like uncovering all these torturous sort of fucking trials and shit that I believe it's called the alpha sections are performing on these people that they're capturing. And it's really fucking dark. And the more you explore it, and you're getting introduced to these different characters in the Iris organization, who are essentially trying to go up against the alpha sections to expose them of their corruption. And it's really a great narrative. And Paige and Jade, the two kind of main characters of the game, have such a great chemistry, and this kind of father-daughter bond thing, and this mysterious backstory with Jade, and why she looks at Paige as a parental figure. Like, it's a great narrative. And then, like I said, it has the Metal Gear Solid-esque stealth sections where you're stealthing along and trying not to get spotted by the different soldiers or the different enemies. And you also have some kind of platforming-esque moments similar to something like Tomb Raider. And then with that cartoony aesthetic that would make you think it's just going to be this, throwaway story, but it's really, really not. And added on to all of that is this, I guess at the time you could call it an open world, or a somewhat open world that provides you exploration but then gets you back to the linear segments of the game for the main story. But you have these open worlds where you can go and you go on these, like, in the main city they have a little bar where you can go in and play air hockey and play a little, like, almost carnival, guess where the ball is. This dude's moving the cups around with the ball inside of you, trying to keep your eye on the ball to figure out where it's at. And you have like little hovercraft races that you can go and participate in, and a little chase. These people are robbers, and you're going off and chasing them in these like little cave sections, and you're avoiding lasers and different environmental hazards as you're, whipping your damn hovercraft. And it has like upgrades and shit where you can, increase the well, you get like little boosts out in the world to where it's essentially like nitrous, and you can use that with your hovercraft. But you can also just upgrade the hovercraft in general throughout the game, and it's just such a fun fucking video game. I will say there's a couple things that, and it's weird, when I played it on the PS2, I don't remember having as many issues with the camera as I did playing through it, because I played through it on the Series X with the through the backwards compatibility with the 360 version, and I just found so many issues with the camera that I don't remember having on the PS2 version. I don't know if there was some issue with that port or that remaster, whatever you want to call it, but the camera was really, really wonky this time around. And so, yeah, there are some quality of life updates that would be nice, but I think just the core idea of Beyond Good and Evil is something that it's just a real heartbreaking story that this thing is just kind of sitting off and seems to probably never, very, very likely that this thing will probably never come out. And it's just a bummer because they created such a unique world that even stands out apart from a lot of the other unique worlds that were created in that generation. And yeah, it's heartbreaking in that regard, but such a joy to go back to and play through. And especially when thinking about like what could be added on to this format, because like when I look at the combat, I think that's really one of the key elements of Beyond Good and Evil that could be improved upon with a sequel. It's pretty simple, just like one button kind of, just pressing square, pressing X, and then you can hold it down for like a charged attack. And it's fairly standard. You also get like a first person kind of shooting these little discs that are really useful, especially in stealth, because you're one of the main enemies in the game. They have like these oxygen tank like things, and when you throw the disc at them, you hit them in the back of the oxygen tank, and then they run around trying to restore that. They're trying to get their buddy to come over and restore their oxygen tank thing. And if you run up to them in time and kick them, it's kind of like a one-hit kill scenario if you can, either kick their oxygen tank or hit it with a disc. So those are really the only mechanics in the game for combat. And I think improving upon that, in which I will say a lot of the Ubisoft games, especially like Assassin's Creed, I think have fantastic combat, with a good bit of variety that I think would work great for a Beyond Good and Evil style title. But what the biggest kind of, and I want to kind of walk around this without spoiling it, but the final act of this game, like the final hour or two, that opens up endless possibilities for where a sequel could go with Beyond Good and Evil, because it is, like I said, it's very Metal Gear Solid, it's very Tomb Raider, it's very Pixar-esque, Disney-esque with its aesthetic, but by the end of the game, I'll just say it gets very Star Wars-esque in its nature. And where they could take that, I mean, it is like an open slate, endless possibilities. And I kind of saw that with the little bit we saw of Beyond Good and Evil 2, the little bit of gameplay. It really looked like they were honing in on that one specific aspect. And I don't want to go too much more into it, because for those of you, I know it's a 2003 game, you're talking about 20 years ago. It should be in spoiler territory. We should be open to talk about it, but it's like, I discovered games last year that came out 20 years ago that I never played, and I wouldn't have wanted them spoiled for me. But the end of this game is the mechanic that it opens up is very fucking interesting, and I would love to see that explored more in a sequel. But yeah, all in all, man, I highly recommend, if you haven't played this game, check it out, give it a shot. It still holds up to this day, despite a few little quality of life issues. But outside of the combat being pretty simple, outside of the camera being a little bit wonky at times, it holds up incredibly fucking well, and the art style has aged like fine wine. It's kind of in that camp of art styles that never really it never really shows its age. So yeah, I highly recommend checking this out. It is a very unique game.